Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. The 2025 NFL season ended on Sunday. A long season, I think a successful season for the most part. Maybe not the greatest of Super Bowl games. We will get to that in a minute. But Dennis, how did you enjoy your big game day? Are you sad the season's over? Ready for a little break? How are you feeling?
I'm conflicted. I'm sad it's over. You know, we come out of the gate week one and we're like, oh, fantasy season is here. Let's get them lineups set. You know, we get to about week 8 or 9 and we're like, oh my God, it's almost over. We're past the halfway mark, and then we get through the fantasy championship and it's on to the NFL playoffs. And, you know, now then we're still rooting for our favorite teams. And, you know, if you're like me, you're not rooting for your favorite team because they're out of the playoffs. But, you know, and then you just kind of work your way and look back over the year. What'd you do? How'd you do? Like monetarily, I had a really nice year in fantasy. I crushed it. I probably one of my best years ever. That being said, you know, old teams die fast. And so now I've got some work to do on those dynasty teams in the off season here. You know, I tend to look at things like how many Buckeyes were in the game. What are they doing? And are they playing well? Any guys, you know, I still pull for Matt Stafford because he's a longtime Detroit Lion, even though he's with the Rams now. And like, what are those connections you have to the game? I'm not a big sports betting guy. So while we talk a little bit about the Super Bowl props, you know, I don't really place any bets. You know, I've had years where I've just been like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. And I've done okay. But most often it's like more fun to talk about than actually do. Especially, you know, gambling is legal here. We've got a casino in Columbus. I can go gamble just about any time I want. And, you know, I'll be honest, I like money. And so I'm not, you know, I'd almost rather just drive around the freeway really fast, throwing money out the window than walk around a casino trying to get lucky. So fantasy is where it's at for me. I like fantasy and you know, we've got some planning to do. You know, we're going to talk about the upcoming schedule for the NFL, and I enjoyed the Super Bowl. I made some buffalo chicken dip. You know, I'm not a super social guy, so I'm not like looking to have a big Super Bowl party. And the last time I did a like NFL kind of watch event was about, I think it might be 4 years ago, this NFL draft. And I ended up having a heart issue, developed, shit, I don't even remember what it's called now. But my heart was beating really fast. And, you know, went in. So now I got to take a bunch of medicine for that shit so my heart doesn't try to kill me. So, you know, it is what it is. Good game. I enjoyed the game. So I grew up a baseball fan, and I love good defensive baseball. And so when you got two teams with really good defenses that are playing, I don't mind that. Now Seattle kind of, they turned the tides a little bit, and were able to score a little bit better. But I enjoyed watching the defenses.
Yeah, I had fun with it. I don't care for the Patriots, so I was pretty pleased with how the game played out. There were some fun commercials. There were some trailers I enjoyed. I really enjoyed the halftime show. I liked all the pregame entertainment. So it's a spectacle not to be missed. It was a little deflating after how Denver's season ended. I'm sure that's how you felt the last couple of years with the Lions, like not quite making it. I think there are 30 fan bases that feel a little deflated going into the Super Bowl, and 31 by the time it's over. So, but I had fun with it.
I'm happy for Sam Darnold. I love the redemption arc.
Yeah. And it was fun seeing him in teacups with Ken Walker today at Disneyland. But you mentioned Matthew Stafford, so I wanted to talk about the NFL honors. I think most things played out probably as we would suspect, but the big question was going to be how the MVP race went. A lot of people thought that it should have been Drake May. It ends up being Matthew Stafford, where he not only had a great speech, but announced that he's coming back. What did you think of Matthew Stafford being the MVP?
On our show, I said, I think it'll be May. I'm happy for Stafford. Like I said, huge Matthew Stafford fan. I'm glad he's getting his flowers after having to endure playing for Detroit for so many years. I'm excited for him to come back. We did see Rob Havenstein announced his retirement today. So, the Rams are going to have to do some work on that offensive line because Stafford, he's not the most mobile quarterback out there, and he's been managing a back issue now for several seasons. I'm excited for Stafford to come back. They've got Puka. I think that means Devontae Adams is coming back. Kyron Williams got one more year on his contract. Blake Corum's coming on. That defense is playing really well. Sean McVay is a smart head coach. I think it's going to be, the Rams with McVay and Snead, they're like I'm going to push all of my chips in and go for it. Let's go win it. And if they have a couple down seasons because of it, they're like, well, what do you expect? This is kind of how it goes. All right, we push all our chips in. Now we got to go start panhandling and get another bag full of chips. So I think they're going to go all in next year and try to win it. Stafford will be back. They've got some good veterans, some good young players. It'll be a fun season for them for sure.
Yeah, and I think after we saw how Sunday played out, I thought Stafford was the right choice before, but I think that quieted some of the complaints. I'm excited that he'll be back. I thought he gave a great speech, and the NFC West is going to continue to be a heck of a division because the Seahawks still have a lot of pieces in place, and obviously just one. I thought the Rams were good during the season. I thought the 49ers were good during the season and are always competitive. You got to feel for the lesser LaFleur who took over Arizona, which may not even have a quarterback. It's going to be a tough hill to climb. The Hall of Fame, I think, going into the announcement was more notable for all the names of people that popped up that didn't make it in, but we did finally learn what the Hall of Fame class is going to be. Drew Brees goes in, wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, linebacker Luke Kuechly. 49ers running back Roger Craig ended up being the one that survived that veteran committee. And kicker Adam Vinatieri. I thought it was a solid class. I think all those guys are probably worthy of Hall of Fame consideration. It would have been a shame if Brees, Fitzgerald, and Vinatieri didn't get in. But what did you think of the class?
I think it's a great class. I honestly, I think Roger Craig probably should have been in sooner. With his ability as a receiver and a runner on those San Francisco teams was phenomenal. I think he's kind of he's the blueprint for, Bijan Robinson and guys like that, good size that can really catch the ball well, run the ball well. While Bijan is obviously version, 3.0, 4.0. So there have been some improvements made. He definitely has more speed than Craig ever did. But Craig was that guy. And before him, Chuck Foreman in Minnesota was that same type of back. You didn't see necessarily those types of running backs in the NFL a lot, where I think now sometimes it gets lost with the specialization, along the board, where we got a 4-minute back, a 2-minute back, a goal line back, a receiving back, first 2 downs, whatnot. Roger Craig was a true 3-down back that could hold his own in all phases of the game. Larry Fitzgerald, phenomenal. Loved him coming out of Pitt. Big, strong, good speed. And then the way he transitioned when he got older into that big slot receiver, when his speed kind of dipped a little bit and went to Arizona and made there in Arizona and just really was able to complete. It was like a metamorphosis of his game. And when him and Kurt Warner connected in that Super Bowl, and we thought, they're gonna win that. And then I forget who they were playing that actually came back after that, but I think it was like a 66-yarder there towards the end. And Drew Brees, 50,000 yards. He ended up, he's in San Diego with the Chargers, and he bangs up his shoulder, and they go and get Phillip Rivers and decide, we're gonna let Brees walk. And he had a historic run in New Orleans on and off the field, and he's a prototype for that 6-foot-tall quarterback. And when Tua came out, I compared Tua to Brees. I'm like, this, if he can play like this, at 6 foot tall, these are the types of things he's going to need to do. Clearly Tua hasn't been able to execute that at that level, but that's really what that model for those short quarterbacks needs to be, is that super accurate with a strong enough arm. Brees didn't have the biggest arm, but he could get the ball downfield. But he was super smart. He could see what was coming. There was Sean Payton. They had some phenomenal teams. Kuechly, complete difference maker on defense. I would have loved to have seen his career be a little bit longer because of how good he was, but you understand with injuries and whatnot. And, Vinatieri was just, kickers nowadays are so, we miss those old kickers that you just could count on, because so frequently now we just don't, kickers are, it seems like every week, just about every team is bringing in kickers for tryouts.
Well, and, they said that the Patriots, got overlooked. Vinatieri was an integral part of those early Patriots teams, went in. I know he split time on the Colts, but I'm with you on Brees. I think even if you set aside the statistics, which his statistics and what he did at the position would have been enough, what he meant to the NFL and to the NFL in New Orleans, especially during a just savage period in history for that city, would have, I think, vaulted him in there. I hope as we distance ourselves from the vote that these guys get recognized for how great they were and their contributions and really get celebrated, because I do think it's a shame for all 5 of these guys who got overshadowed for the last 2 weeks by a couple of guys that did not get in. And particularly with Roger Craig, like you said, he was an integral part of those 49ers teams and some championship teams, and he's a deserving recipient. And, we may quibble about the voting process and the technicalities, but it's, it shouldn't take away from the achievements of these guys. So I'm excited to see their speeches when they get enshrined, because that'll mean a new season is kicking off. But before we get there, a couple of other headlines I thought I'd lump out, and you can tell me what stands out to you. Falcons rookie linebacker James Pierce not having a good start to the offseason, was involved in an accident where he hit a WNBA player while evading arrest, and has been arrested and charged with 5 felonies. I'm not sure Falcons fans were pumped that they traded this year's first-round pick to move up to get him. But they're probably less pumped now. David Njoku, a player near and dear to your heart, bid farewell to Cleveland. He is a free agent. I assume that he is believing he is not returning there. And then Adam Gase, a name that we have not heard in quite some time, is returning to the NFL coaching ranks, taking a position on the offensive staff of the Los Angeles Chargers. So what of those headlines jumps out at you?
You know, Pierce, it's unfortunate. Kids do stupid stuff. And I say kids in quotes. He's a grown man.
I mean, kind of. They say, like, I mean, there's a reason you're allowed to stay on your parents' insurance till you're 25. I don't
right.
Let me look at how old. I think he's like 22.
Unfortunate. That the accident happened, that he lost his cool. It's gonna take some time to play out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is he had 10.5 sacks as a rookie. So I don't think Atlanta's gonna cut him.
Right now,
and
if they, be more worried about
if they do cut him, somebody will be coming around here a little while later and picking up the pieces once he gets shit worked out. Njoku, I guess it's, he's a very talented tight end, and he never quite reached his potential. Some of it was injuries, some of it was maturity. He's had some good seasons. I think he's a good two-way tight end. He's big, he's strong. Unfortunately for him, he's going to be 30 years old, and Harold Fannin came in and had a 1,000-yard season, and the Browns are in transition. And with Monken coming in, and they're still navigating the Deshaun Watson. I saw a blurb today on Roto World that said, they expected that Shedeur Sanders was going to get a long runway to try to be the QB1 in Cleveland.
Well, did you hear? I know this is beyond coach speak, since we're still in that February window. We take it with but Todd Monken apparently really wanted to draft Shedeur Sanders, and Sanders told him no because he didn't like the situation with the Ravens. But he,
right.
That was part of his appeal. He really wants to come. That feels like something you say to land a job, but I guess we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, and God. So Watson settled his last 2 lawsuits, and hopefully he's back. For him, anyways. Off
You're
the
saying
Achilles.
He's like Eminem sitting back there. I settled all my lawsuits.
Right.
I'm coming back. Guess who's back?
I don't think Watson ends up playing for Cleveland. Maybe Monken gets forced into giving him a shot, but
they can't really cut him though.
No,
and it still feels like, I still think there is something with Deshaun Watson that was ultimately the reason Kevin Stefanski's not there for another season.
Oh, I believe that. I think that Stefanski basically, I feel like Barry may have thrown him under the bus a little bit. Because Stefanski was like, I'm done with a lot of this bullshit, and I'm gonna do shit how I want to do it. I've been trying
I'm
to make.
I'm still not convinced that Stefanski wanted or Sanders either, because I go back to the look on his face when they went to the Cleveland draft room. after him being drafted was not the face of somebody who was pumped about the pick they had just made.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think he's happy to be in Atlanta.
Which
He's
that brings
professing
me
his
to
love for Michael Penix, and they've already, we've heard they're cutting Cousins.
well, they have to cut Cousins. That
Yeah.
I honestly don't understand why they let that GM, but that the ship sailed on that. But I do have a theory with that regards Njoku. Stefanski liked him a lot, and I don't think they want to pay the premium for Kyle Pitts because Kyle Pitts is going to get a premium somewhere. You're either going to have to franchise tag him, which is a lot of money, or I would not be shocked to see Njoku slide into a real nice opening down there. Somebody who's familiar with Stefanski's system, who he liked, who he probably thinks can still play at a high level.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie Warner's the guy right now. If they don't bring back Pitts, their other two tight ends, Quinterano and Felipe Franks, are free agents. Makes perfect sense. Go down there. You know the offense. You can help ingratiate Stefanski to the team by making sure the wide receivers know what they're doing and, help the offensive line adjust. And we see it a lot of times when coaches move, they bring in players that are familiar with their offense. So I agree. Pitts had a great year, and he's going to demand big money, and somebody's going to pay it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk Super Bowl. It was, from a game standpoint, not incredible and not incredibly competitive. Seattle Seahawks end up with a 29-13 win. That makes it seem both more up-tempo and closer than I think it ever really was. It was at one point in the fourth quarter 19-0, and then I think Seattle took a little bit of their foot off the pedal defensively, although they still did end up with a defensive touchdown in there and adding more points. Seattle wins. The MVP goes to Kenneth Walker, and this, to me, puts Seattle in a real precarious position this offseason because I said all the way back to last summer that I thought they were playing out the string with Walker and they were going to be happy to turn things over to Charbonnet. And most of what we saw during the season was they rode Walker really hard between the 20s, but they brought Charbonnet in on third downs, and he seemed to get all the goal line work, and that probably would have continued in the playoffs, except in their first playoff game, he tore his ACL, which is a bad news situation for him because ACL injuries take a little while to come back, especially for running backs, and doing it in January is no bueno for the following season. But that also allowed them to give monster workloads to Walker, unlike anything he got in the regular season. And he produced some incredible games now going into free agency. So we talked about this back and forth a little bit during the game. I think they have to franchise tag him now. What do you think?
It would make sense. I think the franchise tag is around $14 million. Is what they're projecting it, and that it would make sense to franchise tag him and see if you can work out a deal. Spot Track is projecting his market value at around $9 million a year. If I'm Ken Walker and you offer me 3 years for $30 million plus some additional incentives, what is he? He's 25 years old, just turned 25 a couple months ago. I think that makes sense, but by franchise tagging him, you end up with limiting, who he can deal with. And
because I don't think it's crazy to think that there is a running back needy team with cap space out there that would be willing to go over 3 years, $30 million.
I don't. Well, he's going to have to compete with Breece Hall, who is.
I mean, if you were looking
25.
on, well, and I don't think Brees Hall's a bad option either, but Walker has been better and more consistent throughout his career and just put on a clinic. I mean, he went for over 100 yards and was a Super Bowl MVP and broke some big long runs against a defense that didn't allow more than 50 yards to any running back when Milton Williams was healthy all season. That's quite a thing to put on the resume. Brees Hall, meanwhile, was on a dreadful Jets team that spent most of the season trying to figure out if they could find a way to not have to play him.
I mean, it was a
dreadful Brees Hall, but Ken Walker is going to be the first domino there.
It's, you know, what's crazy is that Javonte Williams is just a couple months older than Kenneth Walker. Or no, he's younger.
Javonte Williams is going to be. It is actually, I don't know about the draft class, but it is a sneaky good free agent running back class because you're right. Like in Tampa Bay, both Rashad Walker and Sean Tucker are free agents. They'll probably keep one, but I doubt they're keeping both. You know, those two guys, Javonte Williams, I have to go pull up the list. When I was looking at it, there was like 7 or 8 names where I was like,
I've got it up here. Travis Etienne, he's 27.
There you go.
Javonte, he's 20, almost 26. Brees, almost 25. Kenneth Walker, he's 25. They're probably the headliners. Rashad White, 27.
I mean, Kenneth Gainwell had an interesting season. I'll be curious to see what he can get. You have the 2 guys from Tampa Bay who are going to draw some interest there. It's a J.K. Dobbins is back in the pool.
I looked at Dobbins. I didn't list him because as much as I love my Buckeyes, his injury history just.
But when he was on the field the last 2 years, he looked
great.
He was a force, and it's tough. Najee Harris is a free agent. I know he's coming off a brutal injury and did not really get a chance to do anything last year for the Chargers. But I mean, there are options out there. But Walker, I just think Seattle is going. You know, maybe they do the non-exclusive franchise tag, where at least if he ends up taking a mega deal that they don't want to pay, they get draft picks back. And sometimes that's enough to dissuade people. But I don't know off of that. It would be a real roll of the dice, especially considering you don't know what the week 1 status of Charbonnet is going to be, to just roll into free agency and let Walker hit the open market.
You know, they were pretty comfortable with George Holani. When he came back, they did let him slide right into some of that, a big portion of that Zach Charbonnet role. So they do like him, but I think didn't you say he was a free agent too, or is he?
No, I don't think he's a free agent, but only 2 carries versus 27 for.
He is a free agent.
Oh, he is.
But he played 35% of the snaps, so not quite as much as Charbonnet, but they did throw the ball to him. They did. They do trust him. So, you know, it'll depend on.
George Holani is only in his 2nd season, so how could he be a free agent? He'd have to be
he's been in the league a couple years. He's a exclusive rights free agent.
Yeah, that would make some more sense. Maybe he only has 2 years. Well, it only shows 24 and 25 of him having stats. He must have just been a
free agent.
Yeah, I don't see a draft listing, so he must have been a college free agent, which is why, because he has only 2 years of NFL experience, 24 and 25, he's only carried. You know, I just don't know how, even if you liked him, he's only carried the ball career 25 times for 83 yards. That's not enough of a sample size to totally know. And even in the postseason, he had 5 carries for 10 yards and 4 receptions for 34 yards. He was out there quite a bit, but I don't know. He only had 2 carries for 6 and 1 reception for 7 in the Super Bowl versus Kenneth Walker, who had like 30 something touches. Yeah, I bet it is. It is a deep free agent class. So if they don't want to spend 15 million a year on Walker, they could probably get a decent back. I think. I also wonder what exactly their offense is going to be. We knew they'd be run heavy with Kubiak, and he is now gone to Las Vegas. And I have not seen any announcement of Seattle's offensive coordinator. They're probably working on a parade. But I think that's probably the biggest off-season question for them.
Yeah, let's see. Their Seattle's passing game coordinator is Jake Peets. Quarterbacks coach is Andrew Giannacco. Wide receivers coach Frisman Jackson. Mac Brown, tight end coach.
So what I see from today on the
none of them strike me as guys that are going to get promotions.
Seahawks expected to make internal hire to replace Clint Kubiak. That's from John Snyder today. Yep.
They got Rick Dennison there, who's been a offensive coordinator. He's the run game coordinator, senior offensive advisor.
Yeah.
The other ones just seem like they're kind of young.
I guess they're saying this article is speculating that it could be Justin Otten, who was the offensive coordinator for the Broncos in 2022 under Nathaniel Hackett.
That'll go well. And then he was the running back coach, run game coordinator for the Titans in 23.
And he is the running back offensive line. Says run game specialist, assistant offensive line coach, and co-running backs coach. So, maybe that's to keep some continuity in the scheme, but we'll see. Walker picked a good time to be the Super Bowl MVP. Probably added millions. A lot of running backs, you worry about that second contract where you really need to make or break it. It's hard to imagine anyone has launched into that second contract window in a better negotiating position than Ken Walker. Patriots, meanwhile, came up a little bit short. They have the NFL's Coach of the Year in Mike Vrabel. They have the Assistant Coach of the Year in Josh McDaniels, although you would like to see the best assistant coach in the NFL capable of making some in-game adjustments, but that's just me. And the runner-up for MVP, Drake May, very good season for his second season in the league, a strong young quarterback. I think there are a lot of questions, though. I know they were a fairly successful offense in terms of scoring and things during the regular season against maybe not the most daunting of schedules, but that offense did not look great at any point in the playoffs, and particularly in the Super Bowl, especially up front. Mike Vrabel came out today and said they're sticking with Will Campbell as their left tackle. Drake May's shoulder did not respond well to that news. But what do the Patriots need to do this offseason? It was not a great offensive game really for anyone except for Mac Hollins. So what do you think they need to do?
They need a stud wide receiver. And
you're telling me Stephon Diggs isn't the guy?
Yeah, I think he's past his prime. I think there was a time when he could have been the guy.
Cardi B also thinks he's past his prime as she unfollowed him on Instagram after the game.
So I think I don't know that Kyle Williams is going to ascend. I think Kayshon Boutte is who he is, which is a 2/3. He's going to provide some splash.
He feels kind of like an MVS. Honestly.
Yeah. Pop Douglas is he's a productive slot guy, but he's not Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jackson Smith and Jigba productive out of the slot. So they need to go trade for AJ Brown. They need a guy like that. And to be frank, Philadelphia doesn't need two of those guys. And with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, they've got too many of them. But they need to go find somebody. I don't know if free agency is where they'll get it. I don't know. They're going to be picking late. So most of the potential options in the draft that would fit that need are probably going to be gone. Maybe KC Concepcion falls there, but again, he's a 5'10", 180 pounder. I think they need a big, one of these 6 foot to 6'2", 200 to 210, 215 pound guys that can go out there, Denzel Boston or somebody like that. But outside of that, Will Campbell, apparently he was a little bit injured. I don't know that the arm length is an issue really. He couldn't set himself. He did get pushed a lot. He's got to get a little more lead in his ass, be a little more stout, not be pushed around. He was a really good offensive lineman in college. That's,
that's why he was the number 4 overall pick.
I think the pick was justified, but there's a transition in the NFL that you got to make. And we saw, who was it for the Giants? Evan Neal, really good at Alabama in college, came into the NFL and could not make that transition. He just isn't a good enough NFL lineman. I don't think Campbell is going to fall into that. I think he's going to go off this season. Mike Vrabel said he's going to spend the offseason in an NFL program, meaning he's going to be pumping iron with them short arms and putting some mass in that ass there, so he can set that. I like Will Campbell. Yeah, he's got to get a little better with his feet, and as it's what. So an anecdote here. My wife doesn't watch a lot of football. My son plays football, and so now my wife watches a lot more football. And it's amazing to watch her, because what she watches when we're watching NFL games now is she watches the offensive line because that's what our son plays. And so she'll ask questions, and she's like, well, why did this happen? What is this person doing here? Because she's trying to relate it to what Cole has to do. And it's great for me, other than the fact that I got to talk during the game. But being able to kind of go through and see some of these things that are happening, and Cole and I talk a lot about different, like we're in baseball mode right now. Football season is over, and he's getting ready for baseball season. So, for us, he's big. He's almost 6'2". He's 275 pounds at 15 years old, and he loves baseball, but he also plays catcher. And so I'm not saying, hey, buddy, you got to pick a sport. He's 15 years old. You can play both sports. But when he starts to get there to, which is going to be the one, he's going to have to make some choices, because he's either going to have to put on a lot more mass, refine the mass that he has to play O-line, or he's going to have to get more slender, drop some more weight to get more agile to play baseball. And right now we've got the two sports. He's doing off-season weight training for football and off-season training for baseball, and they're kind of butting heads a little bit. Like, he's going to practice tonight, and we're having to rub out his hamstrings because yesterday was leg day in football. Will Campbell he's got to make that transition to the NFL. There's no substitute for experience. He's got a year of experience. He strikes me as somebody that's going to walk away from this season and go, I need to work on this. And that's what he's going to be doing all off season. it'll be fun to watch next year to see, will he make those changes? Will he get to that next level? I'm not saying all pro next year, but I'm saying, can he get there where he's not being pushed around like he was this year?
Yeah, and they still have a young group. Drake May is only going into year 3. It was Campbell and the guard next to him are both rookies. So, those are some guys facing fire, and they did not face an easy road. The Chargers, the Texans, the Broncos, and the Seahawks would be 4 of the best defenses in the league. So I think that'll help. I like your take about, I think they do need some kind of elite passing game weapon that they can depend on. That was something that they didn't have really this season. I like their mix of 2 running backs. I think with a little better line play and with some passing game that actually was more of a threat, they'll be able to maximize on that. And, Travion Henderson was a rookie too. So they're getting, they were a very young team. And I think there is a bright future for them, as much as I wish there wasn't. And they still are probably in a good spot in their division. Buffalo has been a good team that still has some good pieces, but obviously there's a little bit of chaos in the organization, or they wouldn't have changed coaches and had some of that going on. And they face their own cap issues. Only God knows what's happening with the Jets and with the Dolphins. So, I think New England's still in a good place to have a good shot at returning to the playoffs. I know a lot of people said that we should be weary of them, and after seeing what happened to the Commanders, but I think that is a very different situation. The Commanders were always the oldest roster in the NFL, and you know what happens to those of us who are older? When we get banged up, we don't recover very quickly, and
takes a little extra time.
The Commanders did not spend the last offseason, I think, doing enough to change things. So, we'll see how the offseason goes. But if I was betting on a coach to keep their team strong and their core intact, I would probably bet on Mike Vrabel over Dan Quinn, even though I think both of them are decent coaches. So.
Yeah. Who's the do you know who's the GM in New England? Do you remember?
Elliot Wolf.
It says Elliot Wolf, but it says de facto GM. I think that means Elliot Wolf has the title, but Mike Vrabel is the GM.
Oh, I mean, they went from 4-13 to 14-3 in the Super Bowl. So
yeah, Vrabel's his voice is gonna carry some weight.
As it should. Well, that is a wrap on the 2025 NFL season, and that is a wrap for us tonight. A little bit of a programming note, much like all the NFL players who are heading to Cancun, we are going to take a little bit of time off. I'm not personally going to Cancun. I hope Dennis is just hoping it gets to be 50 degrees in Ohio at some point in time this month. But we are going to take a couple of weeks off. We are going to be back in March. We will look at the combine after it takes place, so that we get a feel for draft prospects, start previewing free agency, and then the new league year begins. During a lot of the offseason, we will probably be coming at you once a week instead of twice a week, just covering the news and the headlines and getting you ready for the season. And for all of Dynasty players' favorite season, which is rookie draft season.
Can't wait.
May every year. But until then, Dennis, if the people have free time on their hands, and let's face it, unless they're looking to watch the NBA All-Star Game or the Olympics, where my favorite moment so far is, the Swedish skier that won a gold medal and confessed to cheating on his girlfriend and asked her to take him back. So those things do exist. But if you're looking to relive the glory of the NFL season, what can you do?
Slide over to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search button, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, hit that screen grab, send it to 2 friends. All of you listen to our back catalog together. We got a whole bunch of shows. You can see listen to what we said about this season. Send us messages, call us idiots.
I mean, you picked I think you did pick the Patriots to go in.
I picked the Patriots and the Bears.
well, 2 playoff teams that went pretty deep, one of which was in the Super Bowl. So, I would not feel too bad about that. I don't remember. I think I picked the Bills with my I think I picked the Bills and the Rams. I wasn't that far off, but things happen. Well, that'll do it for us today. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful time surviving the rest of winter here. We'll be back in March to talk the Combine.